You're in the rant wormhole where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get a rant by becoming a patron. Today's comes from Ian, who wants me to rant about Avatar The Last Airbender, and if I don't have enough to say about that, to throw in Legend of Korra as well. Well, to be honest, I kind of talked about Avatar already, my brief thoughts on it in a recent rant, or Let's Argue video, where I talked about, whether or not I would consider it to be better than most anime, which I would. It's a very solid show, great memorable characters, big adventure through an interesting world. You know, the powers, while pretty basic in concept, are uniquely handled. There's a lot of creative animation, great fight scenes. The creators of the show have good taste in what they were trying, like what anime they were taking influence from. So, you know, they put a lot of good shit into the show. It's been probably close to 10 years, if not more than 10 years, since I watched Avatar, so it's not exactly fresh in my mind, but I distinctly remember being a huge fan of Toph and the legendary scene where she, you know, creates metal bending. Nobody cares about spoilers for Avatar, right? This show's ancient, and everybody saw it before me. I was like the last person to the party on Avatar because I don't watch Nickelodeon. And I was pretty resistant to it at first because it felt really fucking weird and surreal seeing like this anime-esque style but with like Western sensibilities in places that made it feel weird to me. But you know, as it goes along, it's just a good adventure story. Like it's a show that basically, I guess if I had a complaint, it's that it's like almost too safe because it's basically just by the numbers a good adventure. But I mean, that's not easy to do necessarily. Like, it's not as though you can just crack open a book on how to write a solid story and just fucking copy it and get something that's actually good. But I think that the writers are extremely competent at creating something that would, you know, broadly tick all the boxes on making a story that most people would enjoy. So yeah, it's a solid time. Some memorable characters. The fact that I can even remember Toph's name, or Zuka, Prince Zuka. You know, Uncle Iroh. I remember shit. I know things. I know about what's the haps in ye old Avatar. The show's 60 episodes, so like my willingness to return to it is not especially high. You know, it's hard for me to even rewatch my favorite anime that are of a considerable length because I'm always trying to not only keep up with what's coming out now, but to revisit a large number of things I consider classic. I would be down to rewatch it sometime though. I don't know how I don't know how well it holds up. I assume it holds up pretty well. I remember My Cabbage's guy. That guy was funny. You know, I feel like I've seen more stories like this in the time since it's come out. Like, I had not watched a whole ton of, like, very plot-driven adventure stories at the time, so I feel like I'd have more to compare it to. When Legend of Korra came out, I remember being extremely excited about it, because they had done, they did, like, a 2-episode debut, like, way the fuck before the show actually came out, and, you know, I had watched the show not too long before that, so I was like, you know, I was still kind of hype about it, and the action scenes looked really incredible. There was great fight choreography, great animation. The characters were a little bit older, so I was hoping for something a little edgier, you know, something that would take more risks, and the story did do that, from what I understand. But ultimately, I just didn't get interested enough by those first 2 episodes to, like, to care that much by the time the show actually did come out, and it took fucking forever for it all to come out. So like, the word I was hearing on the streets from different people was all over the place. Most of my friends seemed to really hate it by the end. Like, I mostly was hearing complaints from people who I know or trust. I know there's a lot of people who love the show all the way through, so it's not as though, you know, it's not as though it's a one-sided issue, but most of what I was hearing from people who I know was negative. And there was one point where I think one of my friends was rewatching the show, and he played a couple episodes at my house from, like, season 3, and I thought they looked terrible. Like, it was just a pair of episodes that seemed really boring and weirdly paced, and the animation was really janky, and I was like, oh no, like, is this what became of Legend of Korra? Well, now I definitely don't want to watch it, you know, and I heard nothing but contention about the ending. It's also even longer than the original show, so I just haven't had enough temptation to watch it. I mean, if I were to, it would probably be if I were to rewatch Avatar, then maybe I would try Korra for a little longer. But you know, I just what I've seen and heard has not left me with much hope to that it would be nearly as good as the original. Um, so yeah, I guess that's my thoughts on Avatar. It's been a really fucking long time, and it's like I have a bunch of images in my brain from the show. So, like, I know it's not that it's like forgettable per se, but it's just that it's so standard, and I don't mean that as in I don't mean that it's standard as in it's just like everything else. It's very unique, in fact, for a Western cartoon especially. But it's standard as in like playing the standards, as in like it's like a classical piece almost. Like it is built around doing the hero's journey story right. You know, doing it as good as you can, and really not much else. So yeah, I think it's like the kind of show that's like it's almost a matter of course that it's good. It's like what, who doesn't like Avatar, you know, unless you just really don't like anything that is standard. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Sorry that wasn't much of a rant. I'm like struggling to come up with fucking anything to say about this show that everyone has already said things about. I did write a blog post about it on my friend Ghost Lightning's blog at one point, talking about the anime influences on it, how there's episodes that pay homage to Full Metal Alchemist and the style of Imaishi, and tons of Fooly Cooly references throughout the show. So, check that out if you want to hear some more writing from me about more specific angles of Avatar.